Hey, good evening. This is Brian, and you're watching Outdoors with Charlie. Tonight we're sitting in my son's bedroom, and he's here with me now. And Andrew and I have been tying some flies, or tying some jigs rather. Tonight we're going to tie another Maribu jig, or like this. Made this about 15 minutes ago and tried to make a film video on it, and we forgot to put the SIM card in the camera, so we're going to make another one. Now, when I was younger, me and my cousin and my brother, we spent a lot of time on the Gasconade River with my grandpa, and we did a lot of fishing back then, and we caught a lot of goggle eye and a lot of smallmouth. One of our favorite jigs to use was this brown and orange curly tail jig rub. And what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to make another Maribu jig, and it's going to be brown and orange. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be using some brown Maribu. I've got some orange chenille. We're going to use this, and I'm going to put in some of this gold crystal flash also in the tail. The first thing we're going to do before we get to tying is we're going to take this 1/8 ounce jig head. Got this from Bass Pro. It's got a number 2 hook on it. I'm going to be using this black Protect paint. We're going to go ahead and paint the head of this jig. Once we get that done, then we'll start tying. I'm just going to use a lighter to heat this jig head up. You could probably use a torch, or I tried to use a hair dryer and it didn't work real good. Didn't get the head hot enough for the paint to really do what it needed to do. But the lighter seems to work pretty good. It just takes about, I don't know, 25-30 seconds or so to kind of heat it up. This paint is real easy to work with. It's real forgiving. I really like it. If the jig head is not quite hot enough, when you dip it, you can always pull it back out and put some heat to that paint, and it'll liquefy real good and smooth out. Makes a nice hard finish. I really like this Protect paint. Alright, so we're set on that. The jig head is painted. It's ready to go. We're going to go ahead and put this thing. Yeah, it's still a little warm to the touch. So I'm going to go ahead and put this jig head in my vise. Alright, we got pretty tight. That's good. I'm going to be using some brown 210 denier paint, or denier line. We'll go ahead and get this thing started. I like to tie. I don't do a lot of small stuff for trout. Hard on my eyes. To be really quite honest with you, I tend to fish with my fly rod. I tend to fish for bluegill and bass more than I do trout. So I tend to tie a lot more stuff for bluegill. Bluegill are best caught on a fly rod, if you ask me. So we're going to wrap that thing on. I like to take this line and wrap it down. I can turn this. I'll show you. I like to wrap it down right about there where the hook starts to make its bend. Give that thing several good wraps. That way that when I put that Maribu hair on there, it's not going to slip on me real bad. So I'm just going to pick out some of this brown Maribu. And I bought this at Bass Pro. You could probably find it cheaper online, I guess, but I like to go to Bass Pro. Bass Pro Shops and Lowe's are probably my two favorite places to shop. Alright. Hey son, can you grab that Maribu down there? I'm going to need that piece right there. Okay, thank you. Alright, I've got about 2 or 3 pieces of Maribu here, and maybe not too much. Alright, I'm going to pinch that good. Give me a good tail on the back of this jig. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap that around 3 times, but I'm not going to cinch it down real tight just yet. Wrap it around 3 times loosely, and then I'm going to hold that real tight against that hook and give it a good snug pull. Get that down real good and tight. Now, once I got that done, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it a couple more times. Just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to clip the extra marabou here that I'm not going to need. All right. So now this is what I've ended up with. You can see I've got a nice marabou tail on into that. And before I start with the body, I'm going to grab some of this crystal flash that I've got. This crystal flash goes a long way. I'm going to go ahead and grab 2 pieces out of here, pull them out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this crystal and I'm going to double it up. Double it 1 time. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it in half. Then I'm going to double it again, right about the halfway point. And I'm not too picky. It doesn't have to be exact, but pretty close. And what this is going to do, this is going to give me 4 pieces of flashing, or 8 pieces of flashing. Now they're about 4 inches long, so I'm going to take about the halfway point there and pinch that real good. And I'm going to lay this right on top of that knot, or that line I've got there, and I'm going to wrap it around a couple times. Then I'm going to give it a good pull. Now I'm going to take this, if you can see, I've got what it looks like. I'm going to grab this flash up front and I'm going to pull it back. I'm just going to lay it right back on top of itself. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this line, this fly line, right on top of that. So now I'm really got quite a bit of flash back there. All right. So now that's what I'm looking at now. That looks nice. Okay. Now I think we're ready for the body. I'm going to take my chenille. I'm going to need probably about 10 inches or so. The chenille that I'm using is not real thick. They make several different sizes. This is probably the smaller size. So I'm going to use a little extra to make sure I've got good volume on my body of my jig. So I'm going to take this, and again I'm just going to wrap it a couple of times. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my fly line and wrap it back to the front of my jig head. I'm going to let it lay there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start tying this, making the body of this jig. Now because my chenille is kind of small, I'm going to kind of double it back on itself a few times to kind of make the body of the jig bigger. Now ideally what I would have done is I would have preferred to have this jig with a brown body, an orange head with orange marabou feathers on the end, but I don't have any orange marabou. I thought I did, but I don't, so I'm going to have to get some of that. So okay, so we're just about done. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this thing off. I'm just going to wrap that line around the back side of that chenille and give it about 6 or 7 good wraps. Watch my line here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the extra chenille off. Alright, we're just about done. See, that's what it looks like. We're going to give it a couple good wraps and go ahead and finish it off. I find this to be very relaxing. Okay, almost fun. It's almost as much fun as fishing itself. All right, got that good and tight. I'm going to go ahead and clip it off. Now, I don't have, when I pulled my fly tying kit out of my storage, my garage on the shelf a while ago, I noticed that my fly head cement was all dried up. So what I'm going to be using is just some super glue. Probably not the best thing in the world to use, but I've used it before and I haven't had any problems with my line coming unraveled. The only thing that I've got to be real careful with is sometimes the super glue will react with the paint on the jig head, and it can cause your jig head paint to kind of bubble up a little bit if you're not careful. But there we go. We are done. One more step I'm going to do to this jig. You know, these jigs are I was telling my son, these jigs are great because there's so many ways you can fish them. You can cast them out and just retrieve them back in like this. You can put them underneath a bobber or a strike indicator and just kind of fish them off the side of the boat, or you can kind of jig them back towards the boat. But another way that I like to fish these things is with a spinner. Now this is just a brass gold spinner, just like a beetle spinner, and you can buy these. I'm just going to put one of these on here, and if I can get it on here the right way, there we go. It usually takes me 2 times to get it right but there we go. Now I really like to fish these this way too. They're weedless, more weedless this way, and this blade gives it a little more flash. And you got the flash in the tail and the flash on the blade. That looks like something that probably catch some smallmouth or some goggle eye. So nothing real flashy there, real special, but just a very basic Maribu jig with a nice gold blade on it. So I hope you enjoyed my video. I want to thank you for watching it, and if you'd like to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave some comments. I'd like to hear on your impression of my jig and what I can maybe do to make it better. And anyway, God bless you. Have a good night. Thank you.